So what are we going to Malibu for?
Interview day. Big guest. It's like me talking to my future self in a way, which I think is gonna be cool. At least that's what I envision.
I be changing up the crib every quarter. I got tired of not living how I wanna. I'ma make this shit as big as I wanna. Yeah, I get lost on my way to the kitchen in the morning. Somewhere in the hills of Montana. Yeah, baby gotta heal from the traumas. Yeah, mailbox filled up with commas. I'ma make enough to disappear if you wanna. I ain't got no time to waste on a comma. I've been changing up the crib every quarter. I get lost on my way back from the kitchen. Cause I don't know which way I'm going in the Carter.
Well, appreciate you boys. Just kind of opening this one up like I've opened up the last few here, where just getting people that I fuck with on my show. That's the beauty of this. That's why we started a year ago. But today, just kind of introduce the audience, give you some background. Why is there 3 guys that you may or may not recognize here? Lars was on the show last week, founder of 2 investing companies. We've been doing a lot of work out here in North Florida. And Brian, good friend, known you for we meet like sophomore year of high school probably?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about what you do, Brian? Because I just, first time kind of on the show.
Yeah, so currently I have a clothing brand right now, and I'm trying to turn that into like a design agency and just trying to find the right clients and just meet the right people, to scale that up.
Yeah,
So,
cool. And
vision.
you were, the last 4 years you were at FSU?
Yeah, I was. That was a hell of a time.
Yeah, talk to me about that, because we heard Lars's college experience. So take us into your life, state school. You grew up in Florida, correct?
Yeah, I grew up in Florida,
Cool.
St. Augustine, Florida, for about 14 years, but originally I was born in Miami, and so like all my family's from there. And yeah, I decided to go to FSU. I had no idea where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. Coming from my family, both of them are doctors, and so like I felt that type of pressure, to do biology, get into that type of medical field. But early on, I was invested into crypto and whatnot. That whole shebang, like thousands into a couple thousands, keep doing that.
And this is like 2020. This is like
This
crypto.
was a little before. This was a little more during
Okay.
the things were kind of popping off. Like I had 55,000 XRP at the time. It shot up. And I was just stupid as hell. I lost thousands of dollars, and here I have a clothing brand now. So
Nice. So I love it, because it's like you're in school at the time.
Yeah.
All this crypto stuff's going on. You buy 55,000 XRP. What's your making? Like, take me back to that night. You're 19.
Yeah, I was just getting into college at the time. Like,
Take me through the thought process. Was it 55,000 XRP and then hold, or were you like a couple months? I'm gonna dump on this.
So when you get into crypto and whatnot, you get into that whole like, hodl through the storm or whatever.
Define hodl, because nobody.
Hodl is
yeah.
the term where you just like get your asset right and you just hold it through the storm, through the like. You're the captain of the ship and you're just roughing it through the storm. Whatever may be going on in the geopolitical climate at the time. That all affects every market, I'm sure. As well. And that was. Thankfully, I'm done with crypto for now. Planning on re-entering, but once I get some more funds to get into that type of.
Yeah. Cool.
industry,
Now.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's great to have you. So thanks for coming on, because
Thank you.
these are kind of like new style of episodes we're shooting. Where do I want to take this? So yeah, Lars, kind of update us on the last week. I think a good place to start is I know I don't get enough of these, but like, what did you think of the whole being on the podcast as a whole, like this past week? Because the episode did really well. For those of you that haven't checked it out, we had more views in 24 hours on which was really a part 2, because we shot an hour in typical podcast shenanigans that happened, didn't press record. So we came back the next day, shot a part 2, and that did better in 24 hours than almost every video on my YouTube channel has done all time.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
thank
awesome.
you for that.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm glad I could help. Dude, it was fun. I mean, I've been on a lot of podcasts, and definitely probably my favorite one I've been on so far. So it's cool. I usually do a lot like on Zoom and stuff like that. It's just not ideal. So in person's dope. Super cool. Chatting it up. We obviously know each other, but it's cool to like, for people that don't know like details about what we do, it's kind of cool to like share your story and kind of like your experience in this field, because I feel like everyone has the same mindset, but there's like different things from each person you can like take away. So it's cool to sit down with you guys.
Yeah, everyone's playing this. Yeah, right. Like everyone's playing the same game, but we're all gonna do it a different way. And I think that's been super interesting to see coming up. Like just because we're all, I mean, nobody in this room is above the age of 23, right?
Soon, but.
And that's kind of where my first question comes, and this is for like both of you guys because I wanted to hear it. What do you think is the biggest opportunity we have being 23, like, in the time that we are, and what do you think is the biggest obstacle? But let's start with the biggest opportunities so we don't get too far ahead. I'll just start with Lars and we'll go reverse.
Biggest opportunities is by far like the internet. Like it's like, because if you were to start like a clothing brand, an investing company, like it would be like extremely more difficult to like get your name out there, develop like the customer relationship, develop that like brand. And now like, you can take an idea, blast this video out, and it gets free organic traffic from thousands and thousands of people. And, you can start building like an engagement and an audience from that, which is such like a good opportunity. And I feel like a lot of people don't, take advantage of that. Obviously we are, but like there's so many other people out there that just are like, oh, I want to start this brand or I want to do this. It's never been easier to do that shit. So like, I feel like that's the biggest like advantage we have in our generation compared to like when my parents grew up or something like that. Yeah,
we have literally the age of the internet, and the kind of the big thing you hit on there was like, I do think people realize it. I don't think a lot of people are willing to do it. I don't think it's for everyone. So it's kind of like one of those things, but at the same token, I have to say that lightly, because it is for anyone who basically documents the journey about what they're passionate about. It's more than, it's not going to happen in a month. It's not going to happen in 3 months. Yeah. It may not happen in a year. But if you do it consistently, then, and like, whatever every day is to you, for a focus for a year at a time, I think you do start to see at least some, it's the small wins that I think keep us coming back. So I want to touch on that again, but for you, Brian, what's been, I know you're just out of college. You graduated in May.
Yeah, I graduated in May from FSU, and
yeah.
I didn't speak on my time there, but too much partying and whatnot, just a lot of distractions at first, and thankfully I'm done with that. And I'd say the biggest opportunity we have right now is definitely the internet, like Lars said, and just like the opportunities are absolutely endless on there. Like I personally learned how to do all the Adobe like tools through YouTube and whatnot. So in reality, you do not need school. Like you have your parents telling you this and that because they come from a generation that obviously didn't have the technology we have today, the internet and whatnot. So
yeah,
you need to see it from their point of view. Like they don't really know what this thing is, and you can generate money from it, but it's really as easy as picking up your laptop, tossing on a video, learning. But you have to be dedicated, obviously, and be willing to put in the work for that.
Yeah, opening your laptop, asking the right question,
right, and
then going down the rabbit hole to find the answer. And I want to dive into this because I know we talked about it on the way up here, but like, and I've always, as I've grown up since 18, like we're in like that rebellious phase with our parents. And what I've learned now at 22, about to be 23, is just like your parents always have your best for the most part, and generally if they're giving you advice at this stage in your career, like you trust them like that and you're going to them for advice. Let me phrase that very clearly. Like they do have your best interest in mind. And while it might be opposed to what you're thinking, it's just because that's what worked for them. So we're always going to give people advice on our past experience. And it took me a really long time to realize that, because it was always like, how do you guys not get it? Like we're living in the same 24 hours. Like, don't you see all this opportunity online? Like, don't you get that I can really make this happen and like meet people so much easier than I used to be? Like I used to always say this thing, like we have more access to, knowledge than like within like just a Google search than like our parents did for the first like 20 years of their life. And so it's like you could make a slight argument that it's like if people applied themselves, you could gain a certain amount of knowledge in certain areas a lot faster than maybe they did.
Right.
So, but you can't confuse that with like you're smarter than your parents, right? Like it gets a hint of gray area. They have your best interest in mind, but they're going off their past experience. So it's cool to hear you kind of say that. And I know we touched on your experience, like kind of how like, you know, entrepreneurship was treated and whatnot. And it was, you know, not seamless, but, you know, more accepted. You've had a lot of freedom with it. You said you came from a background of like doctors, and I want to hear, was there pressure early on in college? How did that evolve? You know, like, was there a standard at first that changed, or was it always just, you know, Brian's got this, you know, you'll figure it out? Because you're a smart kid, but it's just like.
So my parents, not exactly pressured me, but there was like, hey, like, you know, like, we want you to do what we do, blah, blah, blah. Like, you help a lot of people, blah, blah. Like, morally, they feel good about themselves, you know, doing what you're doing. I think, honestly, the only thing that interested me at the time for that career path was the money involved, genuinely. Like.
And this is the medical
field, yeah.
Medical field, okay.
Doctors make a hell of a lot, you know what I mean? But at the expense of your time, you're constantly, you know what I mean? Like, my dad's an anesthesiologist, so he works in the hospital room constantly, you know, emergencies and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough as hell. I can't be in that situation personally, so.
A lot of high pressure.
Yeah, hell no. I cannot do that. So my brother's actually in medical school right now. He's in his 4th year, and he's, like, losing hair a little bit through the stress and whatnot of all that. And he told me early on, avoid it at all costs. So I said, hell no. And then I wanted to do entrepreneurship at FSU originally. However, that would have, like, pushed me on. I would have been there for another year and a half. Who knows what?
Because you would have had to switch majors?
Yeah, I would have had to switch majors, and I already had, like, some bio classes, but I ended up doing economics and studying that, and it was great. FSU's a great school, but the parties are insane. Like drinking every day, constant, like, the whole culture there. I wouldn't say the party necessarily, but everyone's, like, going out. You go to school, get out, drink, repeat. Like,
see, and like you get around people and they're like, I never lived the college experience, and some of these people are still come to me like, but I want to be successful at 25. I mean, I'm sure you hear that and you're like, aren't you like so grateful like you weren't in the environment to where that was tempting? It's not that like I'm blaming anyone that's there. Like, I think it's a great time, but like it's a lot easier to not make those decisions when you're not surrounded by it all the time, is all I'm saying. So I bet I'm just curious to hear your kind of like take on that whole thing.
Well, so I mean, I've been to FSU like multiple times, and
yeah,
I mean, I like half my high school went there, and you know, I'm very familiar with, you know, FSU and whatnot, and it's for me, it's like when I go out, because I mean, I've gone out to FSU, I've gone out to Georgia, Ole Miss, like tailgating, everything.
Yeah.
Like, tailgating's fun, watching the games is great, but for me, like, when I was going out, half the time I would be out and I'd be like, damn, like, I could be like working on my business right now, or like I could be like doing something else. I could be like lifting with the boys, because for me, like, I'd go out and I'm like, well, this is fun, and then I'd be like, all right, I'm ready to go.
you don't gain anything from it, like, really.
Right, and you're
if
not
you use it as like a networking opportunity, then it's like different, but
Yeah.
you can't obviously do that in Tallahassee.
right. And when you're surrounded, it's just like you're a product of your environment. It's like it's the purest test. I think, you know, when you're spending a majority of your time just doing your thing and like just doing the business and whatnot, like, it's just like when you're on a diet, right? If you spend a majority of your time eating healthy food, bad food tastes like shit. Like, when you don't drink soda for 2 months, it tastes like garbage when you start drinking it again. It's the same thing with like our habits. Like, if you can just get in a 7-day routine of doing like, or like maybe going out once a month and train that muscle to like, you know, but 3 weeks out of every month, like, you're dialed in, I think you just enjoy it a lot more, I think. But a lot of people have never even experimented with that, you know? Yeah.
Well, also, I think like who you're spending your time with is a big thing, because like,
that's huge. Yeah.
If I'm going out with like you or like entrepreneur buddies, like, it's awesome. Like, I'm like, because I know the next day we're gonna get back and like immediately go back to working on like our business or like ourselves, whatever. But like, when I would go out with some of my like girlfriend's friends, which no offense to them whatsoever, but like they're just like so into that like college scene where it's like you go to school, you do your studies, you go out, and that's like there's no like there's nothing else like beyond that. And so like love the people to death, but it's just like going out with that type of people versus like the people I actually want to spend my time with is like it's a weird dynamic.
I noticed too, like those types of people don't really like talking about like business, like finances, or
Yeah.
What are those conversations? Like
that you're having with like random people, like your
yeah,
friends
like
or-
I mean, not that we haven't like I haven't had them or necessarily Lars hasn't had them, but in terms of hours being around it, I'd say you might have the leg up there. So it's probably a totally different story. But yeah, like because there's kids out there that they're on the fence about going to college. I think it's getting less and less popular choice because of guys like us showing that it's possible online. Not saying we didn't attempt to go to college or we didn't face the same sort of like pressure that society puts on you. But if I'm 18 years old and I see people that just show me it's possible, then I'm doing it. But yeah, fill me in on that.
I can't tell you like how grateful I am for that experience of meeting all those people. You know what I mean? Because it shows you what your life's kind of gonna be like in the whole process. And I have like ADHD. I'm diagnosed with it. And I think that's helped me to constantly be doing a bunch of stuff. And I think people are always like a little too stagnant. I think over there, like FSU for me personally felt like a giant like high school. You know what I mean? Like it's like cliques, the frats, the sororities, all that. It's just super cliquey. Like people don't even, if you're in a frat and stuff, like you don't really hang out with like people that aren't in a frat. And I'm just not a fan of that kind of exclusion of people like that, really.
Right.
I went through that whole rush scene. I got bids and stuff, but
Yeah.
ultimately it was through COVID and whatnot, so it was just a bunch of stuff going on. So
Yeah, the concepts of like fraternities are so like if people just stop looking at what it was on paper and you start to like just kind of think about what it is.
you're
it's like,
paying for friends.
You are okay. I see exactly. You're paying for trust, and you're paying for the fact that you think everyone thinks like you because that's what they sell you at the bids. Granted, some people you probably do connect with. I went to a small private school, so our fraternities were a lot more tight knit. Like if you joined this one, is because you kind of did think a certain way. Like there was some level of that, but at the end of the day, you were just kind of buying into relationships and not having to do the work of having to get to know people. Me and Lars met on Instagram 6 months ago and met in person a month ago. And now we've shot 5, like way more profitable experiences together, not because it's a fucking exchange, right. Because people always like, oh, all your relationships as entrepreneurs are transactional, but because we mutually get value when we're in the same fucking room together. Okay? If you're in the same room with people that aren't thinking like that, fraternity houses focused on who they're banging next week, then
focus on it.
You're going to start thinking, oh, who am I banging next week? And how many girls on Tinder can I, like, but instead we're talking about, oh, how can I optimize my fucking content strategy so I can fire my video editor? Like, that's what we're talking about. No, not that we're doing that. Like, but I'm just saying.
Daniel, if you're watching this, I'm not firing.
Yeah, no, that was a terrible like because your video editor is amazing. Yeah. But more like, how can I save myself time on my processes to advance my life and so in doing so my business.
It's a hard balance to find between all that, just like partying and whatnot. And
do you have any tips looking back, and then we'll move on because we'll kind of go off the college route, but do you have any tips looking back? If you could do it again, how would you have kind of designed your life to get the college experience, because I think if you're committing to go, you should experience it, but still maintain a level of focus to where you can surround yourself with like the right people?
Honestly, I would say be as social as possible. Just try to meet anyone. Like, don't try to say, oh, that guy looks weird or whatnot, I don't want to talk to him. Just literally talk to anyone, because you have no idea who could help you out in the end. You know what I mean? Whether you start a business with them, they're your best friend, you marry the person, you never know like who you're going to come across. And I think that's why being social and just going outside of your comfort zone and be willing to talk to someone and just even starting conversations, because it goes both ways, obviously. Yeah. But it takes one person to initiate it. So take that step, you know what I mean? Take that step, start a conversation. And I think my biggest regret looking back would be probably getting in a relationship, really, because that takes up so much time from you. If you don't have the right person, it just becomes like a leech to you.
Right.
So I would say stay clear from that and focus on yourself for right now.
Yeah. Stay away from people and environments that drain your energy.
Leeches and snakes
Like,
out there.
that's good. I'm glad we got that take. I did not even think we were going to go down that rabbit hole. So that's sick. Biggest obstacle right now, and I'll start with Lars. What do you think?
Busy.
And let me frame that because I know we just went off on a tangent a little bit, but biggest obstacle to people who want to be successful, this generation. Let's put it this way, over the next decade. What's the biggest obstacle?
For me that I've found with like me or just like you or any other person that I've met that's like actually trying to like make something work, whether it be like a business, like clothing brand, whatever, is you become so like kind of obsessed about making it like work that everything else kind of like isn't really important. I don't know, like actively trying to like make whatever it is you're doing like better like every single day, because so many people are just like they create something or do something and then like they won't continue to like create or do something, or just like give up on implementing new things because one thing failed. And like when I was starting my investing company, like I tried like VSLs, I tried webinars, I tried like free ebooks, I tried like paying for shout outs, like everything you could possibly think of, until I found one that like worked. And I feel like if I had just given up, like I wouldn't have built it into like a company like it is today. So I feel like that's most people's biggest obstacle, is they never see the end of the road. They just kind of like stop walking halfway through it.
Yeah, and if I could just frame that, it hits on this quote, and I'm going to butcher who said it, but like they asked him, why are you, what made you so successful? He said, I found 10,000 ways that didn't work. I found 1,000 ways that didn't work. And if you're not, and I face this, and we all probably face this, we're like, you don't want to face the 1,000 ways that don't work, because your ego says, nope, this is the way. This is right. I'm right. Like your ego wants to be right. So if you see a little bit of success with it, you're going to ride the wave. And then you might ride the wave and realize you were walking 100 steps in the wrong direction because you kept just convincing yourself you were right. So I think it's just like, I love that you said that, because it was like you kept trying and then you found the way that worked. You went through your hours to find it, and make it work. So that's awesome. But
Yeah, to add on to that, I would say a lot of times you're gonna like promote whatever product you have to your family members, your friends, or whatnot, and I would say take their like input very lightly, and especially if you're trying to sell like a product to them or whatnot, or promote. I'd say kind of stay clear from that, because I don't know, business and friendship, they don't really mix too well, and I just think jealousy like runs rampant, especially like if you have a brand, you obviously have to keep posting social media content and whatnot. And so I think to a lot of people that aren't in that route, you'll just be kind of seen as like, I don't know, like
different, weird.
Yeah, like you're weird, like you don't care about yourself, really, like.
See, and that literally flows.
Idea.
Yeah, I know I didn't answer the last one, but like for this one, and we talked about it on the last one, I think the biggest obstacle is being misunderstood. There's so many outlets to really be who you most authentically can be, because we have so much exposure to all these new things we can do and skills we can acquire and people we can connect with, that there's not going to be a set way of like how people go about life. So I think if you're really going to be your most authentic self, you're going to have to deal with being very misunderstood and remaining in that conviction, because once you lose that conviction, if you really think you found it, and like you don't take the time to go either rediscover it or whatnot, it's very easy to just fall into what everyone around you is doing.
Right.
So at the very least, ride this conviction, get around high level people, and then when you do have those dips, it's a lot easier to pick it back up, I think, because you're just falling back into hanging out with like the people like Lars and Brian of the world. Like that's now the environment you're falling back into. It's no longer it didn't work, so now I'm going back and I'm just drowning myself.
It's hard to find people like that are wanting to take that type of route, take the risks really that are involved with starting your own business and whatnot.
You hit on it earlier. You get what you give. If you're going out, I think when people leave college, they lose all their social skills because they stop. You should take I think if you have the college experience, it's a great approach to when you're out in public and you're just in a common city. It's the same thing. The only reason you're not afraid to walk up to anybody on your college campus is because you have that mutual interest. We're both studying here, potentially, for the most part. When you're in that new city, apply the same. It's a lot harder. I'm not saying it's freaking easy. You know, you don't ever know like what people are up to. But like you mentioned, how do you know? If you're in the same city at the same time for the same event, talk to them, whatever, same bar, you have a mutual interest in this music. Like, don't overthink it. There's no harm. And it's like, but
Probably going to think you're weird if you're talking to them too much, but really, who cares? Like,
people like feeling important. And when you take an interest in them, it shows that you're making them feel important. So
that's very true.
Kind of the AI rabbit hole is tempting because I know everyone's building a business right now. AI is pretty like new as far as full scale usage goes, and it's just interesting because I think we were all in a build mode where that wasn't necessarily the most accessible thing, and now we're like adjusting our building phase to start incorporating these things, at least from my perspective. So I'm kind of curious, Lars, like how has call it the AI revolution, but at least let's call it the first 6 months of this being pretty normal, like affected your business, you know, just kind of, I guess, talk about that a little bit.
So I honestly don't really use like AI too much. I mean, I might throw like an email or something in it to make it sound more professional, like ChatGPT. But it's crazy you mentioned that because like when I was writing like the whole program for like my main investing company, I mean, I wrote like there's over 80 modules with like videos, like pages and pages of like handwritten stuff that I typed out, edited the whole thing on, you know, like Google Drive Google Docs, and then would like put it into the program. If I'd used like AI or something like that, the amount of time that I would have saved would have been like ridiculous. Because I mean, I put like probably 2 months of like straight work into like building out the program, and you know, it would have taken like a week with AI. So.
And I'm curious about that because you've hit on something that I'm going to be very much watching. So if you would have used AI to build the program, how much do you see that affecting what you know and what AI would, I guess, tell you? Like, I guess here's my issue with if you're going to create a course and use AI. It's one thing to correct your grammar. It's another thing to sell knowledge that you don't know. How are you navigating that? I'm sure it's not like there's a playbook for it. So I'm curious.
So that's something I've thought about like a lot, to be honest. And I'm sure like there's a lot of people out there that are already like utilizing, you know, ChatGPT. The only thing that I see, you know, it being a problem, obviously you're kind of like scamming people if you're using like ChatGPT to teach them something. But I mean, like if you had a student, for example, and they're like, hey, I don't really understand what you talked about on module 7, like lesson 3, whatever. And you're like, well, I have no idea what he's talking about because ChatGPT wrote the whole thing. Yeah, I think like with AI, there's
good uses and bad uses.
For sure. Like if you're using it to build out a program and you're going to sell it to people, you're pretty much just scamming them, you know? So,
is there a market to use it to enhance your program?
Oh yeah, I definitely think so. Like the main thing I like about AI is it can kind of do these like day-to-day tasks for you that you
it's
can
like the tedious stuff.
Yeah, like that you can automate. Like
which is that?
Which, like, for example, like you take a super long email or super long like passage and you post the link in ChatGPT and you're like, can you summarize this into the key points? And so like I do that a lot with like market research because I don't have to read this like massive, you know, page of boring like news about the economy. I just want like the main details out of it, so I'll just paste that link into ChatGPT and be like, give me the, you know, like the key points from this, and it saves me so much time. So
interesting. So it's like just in that 2 to 3 minute like segment, we literally went over probably like 10 use cases for this shit that are both morally right and morally kind of fucked up and like really fucked up.
And you haven't even touched on like the different types of AI too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So now diving right into that, dude. Like I want to hear your approach to it, obviously different industry. You know, you're not necessarily launching a course or you're designing a product, but I mean, just in our conversation here, how many times have we discussed different tools? We've probably spitballed like 12 different tools just in the 2 hours we've been like working at the studio.
And all those services, like you could provide that for a company as well. You know
Right.
what I mean? While still using ChatGPT. However, it's kind of like a gray area. Like you don't want to scam the people you're working with, obviously.
You can use it to learn a skill. It's just about applying that skill, you know, ethically and making sure it's really what you're doing. But there's a lot of there's a lot of people that launch Shopify stores that are very in similar market. So, and I think it's more advanced in some areas as far as like, what was the picture one you were?
It's called Midjourney.
Midjourney.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Talk to me about how you've been using Midjourney because
with Midjourney, you basically just type any prompt like you would any AI, and it'll spit out like an image based on the parameters that you set within the caption. So, like if I wanted like a 1950s style like retro comic book thing, I type it in, and it'll like spit an image out, right? And then I can take that image, put it into Photoshop, and just like that's a t-shirt design right there. You know what I mean? You make it your own way. Obviously, you have to be creative. You know, you can't just rip the AI image, but you can just stick it on a shirt. You learn Photoshop. It's not that hard. Like, it's insanely valuable skill, I think.
100%. Okay, interesting.
But it's kind of, I've noticed on YouTube as well, a lot of the thumbnails are actually like generated through Midjourney. So it'll just be talking about random facts and stuff and just showing like AI photos. So it's like you don't really know what to trust at that point. So it's like the different use cases for that AI. It can be scammy. It can be used for good. You know what I mean? So
right. Interesting.
Different.
And I think like to simplify it, because obviously we're just talking about very, you know, simple niches here, like, you know, niches that we're used to. I think like if you want to dive more into it and see how it could help you right now, it's like go on, just ask, you know, chatbot, go right into Google. It's kind of how I always start. What am I trying to do, and see if there's ways for AI to help, but don't set the expectation that it's going to be good or any better than anything you could produce yourself, because then like you might be dishing out shit work that you don't think is shit work because AI put it together. And I've just found too many times it's too early to just trust that these things are running, you know, up to the right way. And there's a learning curve that people don't understand.
I feel like they limit because the actual company has the AI like full control over it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we're kind of like we're talking to a middleman that then communicates to the AI as far as ChatGPT is. Because you've typed in a couple prompts, you know, and it'll say, "Oh, I can't answer that." I'm sure everyone's done that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so obviously they have full control over that, and I think that product is really like.
Well, just think
has
about
the answer to everything. I think honestly.
Think about how it's been released to the mainstream public. We've had AI around since like pre-2000. They've just released it in doses. Like we talked about this last time. What do you think an Alexa is? We've had that since 2013. All you did was it recognized your voice and it told you every answer you fucking needed. It could turn your lights off. Like we've had AI around, and now this was like the first, like, oh, here's the machine we've been using to do it for the last 10 years. And like, again, like you mentioned, we're going to release it in bits. Why is there new models? Like, why is it not just the complete model all at once? If that's what you're saying, free market, free blah, 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 everyone has access to all the knowledge. What I really think happened, and I want to hear both of your guys' take on this, because it's kind of like a conspiracy rabbit hole, but like we talk about kind of like the government as a whole and like, you know, withholding information, withholding like certain details. It's like what, in terms of like how because now there's more public ways to like leak the secrets and like leak that there's been corruption and leak that there's been a lot of hiding and like it's very public. I feel like they just use ChatGPT to be like as a smokescreen, like here, just look it up. But like it's just gonna get enough people to stop fishing for shit because they think like this. They're trying to sell it like this thing has all the magic answers.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. That's just kind of what I'm piecing the puzzle pieces together, and I'm like, it's weird timing if you ask me. Like, there's never been more knowledge about, you know, government corruption than now, and all of a sudden there's a big chatbot to try to bullshit or like control what all the answers, and how everybody should be putting out their content, how everybody should be posting their content, how you should be writing emails. It's like it's very
And they store that data too. Like the questions you're asking, I'm sure some people ask like crazy questions on there.
Yeah, what do you guys think about that? Do you think is it an overreaction, people that like stress that the government has all like a bunch of information about them or like is like watching what they're doing? Do you think that's an overreaction to like fear that, I guess, or like actually have stress every day about that?
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, well, the AI is like constantly learning. So like what people type into Google or what people type into ChatGPT, it's constantly like taking that and learning, which kind of like, that's the scary part for me is I think the only like thing we have that AI doesn't is like human creativity. That's
Right.
the only thing that it like couldn't do in my opinion.
Cool.
And that's like where my industry is, the creative side. So it's
Right.
like can't really do much other than generate like a base image, right, through Midjourney, and then
Because you're saying it was your idea that created that prompt, so the AI just generated the image. That's not the AI being creative. That's
yeah.
human knowledge being creative. No, cool. I just wanted to
But
make
obviously,
that.
I don't have the ability to create those images because I don't know. Some of those images that I create, like it's just endless. The opportunity.
You couldn't make an exact
time saving, I'd say.
Exactly. You couldn't make an exact Yeah, exactly. You probably couldn't make an exact replica, although there's people that could. But yeah, I see what you're saying. It's time saving, and yeah, it's technically
Like I'm
it's
trying to
still
focus
your
on the business
creativity.
side. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I can sit there all day to make a design. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you need to run a business alongside it. So
Yeah.
just finding that middle ground of where to spend your time on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and just to kind of hit on that, as like an e-commerce brand, I mean, we talked about, ad spend and whatnot, and you really, when you're starting out, that's been your main focus, like your main priority, correct, has been like, yeah, because there's people who are like,
Yeah.
they try to get around the ad thing. And they
I
like think
ads
they're
are the most important thing because
Yeah.
you're just putting your brand out. I think it's important to know when to start it because obviously you can't just start ads off the get-go.
okay.
You have to have a brand identity at least,
Mm-hmm.
something appealing. And I would say for that, just go to your friends, ask for their opinion, like honest opinion, and say, hey, like, what do you think of this? And I think a lot of people, what they don't do is put themselves in the shoes of the consumer and say, hey, if I watch this video, would that make me like purchase this product or whatnot? And so that's something that I found like when making the marketing videos, because I'm about to start pumping those out again. But the issue is that you just don't really know like what is going to sell. You have to be constantly learning new trends and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so many sides to the e-commerce business that
Yeah.
you just can't stay focused on one task at once.
Right. Gotcha. Now I'm curious, kind of talking more, I guess, a little relevant. Current state of the economy. There's, as of about a month ago, there's a report out that it costs the average American $700 more per month than it did 2 years ago. So we were all 21, 20, 22 years old. How have you guys, talk to me about the last 2 years. I mean, is it real, or do you feel it as you're building right now? Is it more it's more of like an older person issue, you think, still? Like, I'm curious, like, try to take me through it. I'll start with you. Yeah.
As far as like rent and stuff goes?
Yeah, like just what's been the impact of like, not, I guess, us not being in a depression, but really like us being in a depression.
I mean, dude, we're in a bubble right now.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's crazy because I moved out when I was 19 to a house in Niceville, which is like back kind of where, like around where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
It's 25 minutes from the beach, and which is awesome. And it's like, when I started renting the house, it was a 3-bedroom house, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, garage, backyard, fire pit, the whole thing, for $1,500.
Damn.
And it was like not a great deal, but like it was whatever. Like,
yeah.
dude, now that like you
That sounds
can't
like a
even
great
find
deal
that
today.
now. That's what, like, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying. So, and then the next house I got was $2,300 for like a little bit bigger, without a backyard, whatever. And it's crazy because that was in the span of like 2.5 years. And so, or not even 2.5 years, a year and a half. And so it just kind of shows like how crazy the economic situation as a whole, and just like eventually it's going to crash is my theory. And like people have been saying for years that it's going to like, oh, this will be the year it crashes. But ultimately, like no one really can tell when it's going to crash, but I think it has to.
And you don't think this is already? I mean, in my opinion, this is this is a crash. Like compared to where we were 24 months ago, like I get it. Like I guess if we haven't hit the crash yet, like holy shit. But like this seems like I was hoping we'd be on the way to a correction by the next time we hit the fucking ballot box, because like I don't think this is not sustainable. Like I just don't think the pandemic was obviously puts you far back, but like to just think it hasn't even started to try to get better. 2-3 posts, like we're 3 years past this shit.
Yeah.
I
think also the interest rates right now are just so high that like who wants to buy a house at a 7.5% interest rate. And I mean, like we bought my mom's house, which is about 100 steps from the beach in 2008 for $203,000, and which is like nothing. I mean, my mom's house now, it's nothing big. I mean, it was like our vacation house. The only reason we bought it is because my dad was a realtor. Yeah. And we got such a good deal on it. When the market crashed last time. Yeah. I mean, now it's worth like 1.6. Yeah. Which is just like, that's like, and we'd have people coming up to my mom's door, like asking to buy it on the spot, and like just crazy. And, I think eventually we have to see some kind of correction or something, because it's just not like sustainable, and no one can afford to buy a house. Yeah. What about you, Baron? How's this been?
I don't know. That's kind of interesting because I just think I feel like they're constantly going to be putting as much money as possible just to continue that bubble. You know what I mean? Just to keep it inflated, so to speak.
Keep it inflated. Yeah.
It's just they want to.
Fits the theme today.
I feel like foreign money is just pouring into the U.S., right? And that's gonna hold our interest rate up higher. You know what I mean? Yeah. And just people buying up properties and shit. It's never ending. Like, how am I gonna buy a house? Like, I have to move out of the country. Like, if I want to buy something that I personally want, if I'm not making that income, like, people are working these jobs. Like, you're paying for your rent every month. Like, you're working for your rent, and you have very little to spend outside of that if you're not creating more than you're consuming, which is extremely hard in today's like age. Yeah,
100%. And it's like, it's crazy. I wouldn't even have thought like 5 years ago heading into college, my like genuine, I would genuinely consider I don't like the whole like get dual citizenship bullshit, but like I need like 3 months a year, 3-4 months a year out of this mess. Like I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of people bitching about it to me. I'm tired of seeing it on the Instagram shit. I look at other countries, like my sister's been in Europe for the last 3 months, and like people are happy, healthy, and doing what they are meant to do and spending time with their family. Like, and that's what like this is what this is sold to be, right? Free, easy, free market, bullshit. Like bullshit. Like absolute, like it's, you need to be self-sufficient, but you're not going to be empowered to do it. You're just going to be reminded that that's how you survive. Like that's how you escape. Unless you settle and are saying you live the good enough life, and that's fine. If you're happy doing that, live the good enough life. But if you want more than what you're surrounded by, like you're going to think differently, and you're going to be uncomfortable and misunderstood as they're trying to fucking pin it on us.
I don't know. Like, if I don't make a couple million, like, I don't know how I'm going to buy a house. You know what I mean? Because shit's so expensive nowadays.
Yeah, but take advantage of that, dude. That's the one thing I do want for those watching. Like, if you're listening to this and you're like 18 to like even like I say like fucking 30 and you're building what you're building, like, just do what you got to do to navigate right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, take advantage of the fact that it's all kind of fucked and go live in 3 different places next year. And just like understand that rent's going to be the same regardless. Don't stress over the fact that like your mortgage could be $2,000 a month and you're going to pay fucking $2,500 a month to live on your own. Like that extra 500 is not like because you own the shit. You're locked in it for 30 years. So like don't like just accept that and like play that game if you're not ready. I think it's just like take advantage now. If it's if it's chaos, don't buy into the bullshit. Right? Like just wait till it'll come back. You know, like time will pass. New leaders will.
It's like the stock market. Like obviously there's dips and there's the bull runs and whatnot.
And it was good for a long time. I think I think people in the 2020s right now like are gonna kind of look back and be like it was such like a treacherous like period. But if you look at 2016 to 2019 or 2015 to 2019, even 2012 to 2019 for an extent, like once we got through the crash in 08, it's pretty good. Like it was less chaotic in my opinion. At least, you know, I know we were all teenagers, but it didn't feel so like just conflicting or like people like
I feel like it's strange for us too because we like know we don't know any different than this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel like the people that know that society's changing are the people that are older than us and have more life experience, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of me, like this is normal, this is what life is because it's all I know right now, you know what I mean? Living in the US, this is the current condition.
Yeah.
And
We're
so
going
it's
through
like,
the downturn at 23. Some people got to ride the upswing at 23. That's what I always think about. Like, what about the guys that were in our shoes in 2016 when shit was booming, that thought like us, that built like us, that did, you know, it's very intriguing. I'm not saying they would necessarily, I think it all comes down to you, but I would say circumstances could have been, I mean, they were.
It's just adaptability like, at the end of it.
Yeah.
Just being able to take a bad situation, just turn it into, make yourself comfortable in it, you know?
Yeah. What's on your guys' mind? Final thoughts? Anything?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know.